Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, very good. Thank you.
First of all, very Eid Mubarak to yourself and brother Ammar.
Thank you very much.
Yourself, brother.
And moving on to the topic of the day, Muharram. There are two things. One is that most of Sunni scholars, they say that Muharram is important due to all of the prophets, all Anbiya, not only Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But we take the concept that Muharram is only important due to Imam Hussain alayhi salam and all the Karbala battle. And if you could talk on that. And secondly, that some Al-Sunnat mosques and the scholars, they celebrate Muharram as the Islamic New Year. So could you just put a bit of light on that?
Sure. Brother, just regarding the first one, when you say regarding all prophets, what do you mean?
What it says that Muharram is important for all Anbiya, due to all Anbiya.
Okay.
Not only Imam Hussain. Imam Hussain is not the category.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. Two questions.
Thank you very much, brother.
Talking to me. Okay. Just break off from there. We have a caller on the line, I believe. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Ammar, this is Kabir from East London.
Welcome to the show, Kadir.
And salam to Sheikh as well. I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all is, we're talking about male hijab. I'm just talking about when it comes to Azadari on the day of Ashura or any other juluses that we go to, where people do matam, with their shirt off and all that. I just was wondering whether is that because in places like Pakistan or even some part of Arab, the juluses actually go out where everybody can see it, men and women. So I just was wondering where is that kind of a thing acceptable when it comes to Azadari?
Okay.
That's one of the questions, and it might be a bit like a deep one. That that's one question. And the other one is our brothers Al-Sunnah. I've seen a lot of them. They wear it's a bit like a scarf they wear on their head with a topi and like a hat. Yeah. But it's not like worn like the hijab women wear. So I'm just wondering whether is that like sunnate like a Sahaba or something, because it's like they've got a kind of a uniform. They're wearing a jubba which is like up to their just below their knees, and so is that like a kind of a hijab as well?
Okay, all right.
So I don't know if that makes sense, but I just wanted to clarify it.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you for the call.
Okay,
so the first one was about Azadari, yeah.
And the second one was about the turbanless walk, or the. Firstly, when it comes to the Azadari, as in most actions, it goes down to the intention. When it comes for the Azadari of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, generally most of the things that take place are accepted unanimously by our ulama. And then it goes down to the intention after that.
Right.
See, if I remove my top because I want people to, and I don't really think it's out of context. It's totally wrong to think that people will take off their tops in that time, unless they're I'd say they're sick and twisted.
Yeah.
At a time of mourning, you're taking off your top to show off. I find a lot of people that make these claims are generally people that have enmity towards Azadari.
Right.
This is what I find. People that they're against anything, they think it's primitive and the julus is primitive. I find they're the people that attack it the most.
Right.
However, you do see some people that don't have the involvement in the spirituality as one ought to. But Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam say in the traditions that if you can't cry over Imam Hussain, tabaka.
Yeah.
Try and cry.
Yeah.
So I think you're better off involving yourself in the Azadari in any way or form, any shape or form, rather than pick and point out people. I do believe there should be some kind of modesty in the dress, but as long as the people that take their tops off, I think, are covering up to their belly button, that is okay. And if people are going to walk around and just watch and check them out, then that's their problem, not the actual people that do it.
Sorry, just to interject on that particular part. Also, you have when the juluses go out and they're out in the streets. In London, we have quite a few different kind of big juluses that go out in, in prominent areas. Is it okay that, for males in that situation to be also kind of bare-chested, or was it?
You're living in England. Half the population's naked when there's a bit of sun comes out. It's not like it's something foreign to them. I have never read anyone say that it's not permissible.
Right.
Okay, to any of our ulama, unless someone can correct us from one of the callers. I haven't read. I never said they haven't said it. I haven't read anything that would suggest that it's wrong. During this time, and amazingly enough, if it wasn't for the julus and the azadari in general, no one would know about Imam Hussain.
Sure, yeah.
This is what gets the media coverage. Amazingly enough, people try and make it out like, you're bringing Islam into disrepute. You're not. This is totally incorrect. I'll tell you, you're more likely to bring Islam into disrepute when you do 7 laps around a box or a cube in the Kaaba, because this is the way they see it. Or you're hitting a wall where it used to be a pillar with 7 stones. People must think, what are these people doing? There is a lot of things that we do that do not seem normal. Because you look at modern day countries like Spain that have the treatment that they have with the bulls and the matadors and the fighting and stabbing the bull, and we're not doing anything of that type. And the dress is a representation of generally why people take their tops off. It's a representation that the body of Imam Hussain was uncovered in Ashura. And that's why the ulama used to even remove their turbans on the day of Ashura. That's why sometimes you'll see Majlis, people put turba on their head to show that Imam Hussain alayhi salam's head was covered. So in turab. And the blood is also as a representation of the blood that was shed on that day. So even the dress is for that reason. I don't see how it would have any sexual meaning, or how someone could get aroused from it. However, there are people that are sick and twisted, and they could get aroused from this chair or this table. So, and that's a different story altogether. As for the second part, if you want us to...
इमाम जाफर सादिक अलैहिस्सलाम ने अपने आबा से नकल करते हुए पैगंबर अकरम का ये हुक्म और ये फरमान इस तरह से इरशाद फरमाया कि जो बात भी तुम तक हमारी तरफ मंसूब हो कर पेश की जाए तो तुम उसे कुरान के मुताबिक परखो। अगर वो कुरान के मुताबिक है तो हमने कही है, और अगर वो कुरान से इख्तिलाफ रखती हो तो समझ जाओ कि वो हमने नहीं कही है। हम सब मिलकर पूरी उम्मत इस्लामिया एक ही प्लेटफार्म पर, यानी वो अहले बैत अलैहिमुस्सलाम के सिरात मुस्तकीम पर आ जाए, जो सीधा रास्ता है अल्लाह का। तो मैं ये कहता हूं कि हमें कुरान मजीद से रोशनी हासिल करते हुए देखें कि मेयार इमामत क्या है, मेयार खिलाफत क्या है। हुजूर ने इरशाद फरमाया, इन्नी तारिकुन फीकुम मुस्तक़लैन किताब अल्लाह व इतरती अहल बैती, मैं तुम में 2 गिरां कदर चीजें छोड़कर जा रहा हूं, अल्लाह की किताब और अपनी इतरत अहले बैत। वस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू।
बयान हक, दिफाए मजहब अहले बैत और नामूस मुहिब्बान अहले बैत। बाज़ दुश्मनान की शरंगेज और झूठ पर मबनी तकारीर के जवाब में इल्मी और मालूमाती सिलसिला गुफ्तगू। आलम तशय्यो के मायनाज़ इल्मी शख्सियत आयतुल्लाह हसन रजा गदीरी के ईमान अफरोज लेक्चर्स, अपने अकायद के जवाज और हक के मुतलाशी अफराद के लिए बेहतरीन तोहफा। डीवीडीज के मुकम्मल सेट के लिए अभी राब्ता करें अकबर जाफर 07935273951।
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the 20th hour on Ahli Bayt TV, Sky Channel 836. Again, I'd like to welcome you back and remind all viewers that this is a live show, so if you would like to phone in and ask us any questions, the number is 0208 900 1741, and inshallah that will be along the bottom of your screens throughout the rest of the evening. Again, you're joined by myself, Isa Ali, as your host, and Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani, who is our dear and beloved Sayyid and Maulana, and is here to answer all of our questions. So inshallah we will be able to do that for you. Before we went to the break, we were discussing, obviously, with Muharram approaching, we were discussing the life of Imam Hussain, and we are going to now carry on discussing the events leading up to and including the 10th of Muharram. Before we went to the break, we had a phone call from a brother who asked, was the firstly a two-point question. He said that there are some people who claim that why do the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, the school of the Ahlul Bayt, claim that it's only important, Muharram is only important for Imam Hussain when there are many events regarding the other prophets. So it's important for all the prophets. And his second question was, some people say that Muharram is the new year, or Muharram is the onset of the new year. So if you wouldn't mind, say, just answering those two questions for us.
In terms of the historical narratives, there are narratives which state that certain prophets of God, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon them, were helped very much in the month of Muharram. Be it, for example, a prophet like Yunus alayhi salam, where some narratives mention him being saved from the belly of the whale in the month of Muharram, or indeed even on the day of Ashura. We do not deny that if there are prophets of God who Allah sent His blessings upon them in that month, we do not mind mentioning them. I personally know of speakers who have listed every single virtue of Ashura to honor all these prophets. But because our holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa is seen as the greatest prophet of God, when he tells us about his grandson and how we should honor him and remember him, and that God has mercy on those of us who love him, that's why we then take his martyrdom as being above the rest. Because we are taking from the final messenger who has the final message for all of mankind until the day of judgment. And that's why we have such a reverence for his grandson.
Thank you very much. And it's the new year?
Well, I've never seen narrations where the Prophet ﷺ comes forward and says, make sure all of you have New Year celebrations because it's Muharram. On the contrary, Muharram was not seen as a month of celebration, it was rather seen as a month of a sacredness in the Arab territories, and the idea that Muharram and Rajab and Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah were seen as sacred months where fighting would stop. And for those who want to say, well, you know, at the end of the day it's marking the beginning of the calendar, actually Rabi' al-Awwal is when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa entered Medina, and therefore that should have quite a bit more of a celebration.
Sure. And before we asked those questions and we answered those phone calls, we were discussing the time of Imam al-Hussain living under Muawiyah, or living with Muawiyah, should we say. And you then mentioned that as he's coming to the end of his life, Muawiyah then begins to transfer power to Yazid. So then what is happening at this point?
Well, what's happening is that you've got some of the most renowned companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa their sons are living in Mecca or in Medina at the time. So you have, for example, Abu Bakr's son Abdul Rahman is living, Abdullah's son Umar is living, Umar's son Abdullah is living, Az-Zubair's son Abdullah is living, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam's son Imam al-Hussain is living. So you've got candidates who can be there, who can lead the ummah. But Muawiyah makes sure that he sidesteps all of these candidates and takes his son Yazid. And the thing is, his son Yazid didn't have the best of reputations. His son Yazid was known as a man who was fond of the world of, you know, lascivious lifestyle. A man who enjoyed, you know, the comforts of having an environment full of music, an environment full of women, an environment full of gambling, and the pleasure of alcohol that surrounded him. Not something you'd expect of a righteous personality to lead the Islamic State. One may argue he was more inclined to his mother's side of the world than his father. His mother, of course, being a Syrian Christian, and that he enjoyed more of that lifestyle. But the point was that when Muawiyah would ask people, like Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah, do you think I should, you know, announce Yazid as my successor? And Mughira would say, wait, you know, nobody really respects him at the moment. And then he asked Ziyad. Ziyad said, well, why don't you fit him in some prophecy where, you know, people would then change their mind about him? And that's what he does. He fits him into that prophecy that those who fought at Constantinople would be protected. And indeed you find that that is exactly what is seen to have happened, in the idea that he's fitted into a prophecy that whoever fights in Constantinople, all his past sins are forgiven. A few Kufan scholars are well paid off, and you find that he's taken a successor.
Thank you very much, Said. You said obviously now Yazid not having the best of personalities then, the best of reputations, apologies. He's come to power, or his dad is preparing him for power. He's